Hey buddies, I'm Spuggy here, coming at another Borderlands 3 video. Today we're going to be talking about the worst weapon in the entire game. There's a couple candidates for the worst weapon, but I truly do feel like this is the worst weapon. Now the worst weapon that we have here is going to be the Shoddy. Now the Shoddy is a weapon that comes with fixed parts. It doesn't have any variants at all, so you can only get one type, so that's good in case you want to farm it. There is no anointments that you can get on it at all. It comes from Borderlands 3 Bounty of Blood DLC. It's a quest reward from the money back guaranteed quest, but the way that it can shoot is really bad, and you can pretty much almost deal like no damage with it even when it does hit. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You have no idea how much it helps me out, and let's get into it.
Legendary? Whoa! No way, dude!
So first things first, the Shoddy is Jacob's. That's its best factor because when you get a crit, you can actually get the bullets to ricochet. But what the big bad part about this is that when you shoot it, the bullets immediately fall to the ground. Now the bullets do actually travel, so if you aim higher, it does actually hit a little bit farther than it would otherwise. So in theory, you could aim up all the way to the top and shoot a little bit further. Like right here, here's an enemy. I'm going to shoot up here. And we were able to hit Handsome Jack's clone like that. I'm going to get a tiny bit closer so we can get the head. Just with all that work, we're able to deal about 1/4 of a million damage, which is okay, I guess. Even with its wonky mechanic, it is honestly very bad at its damage itself. Even when I activate some things, the damage only scales to about almost 1.5 million, which is okay, but granted, this is with Revolter and a bunch of other bonuses I have for shock damage, so that isn't really saying much. Now, you could argue that this weapon is a joke weapon, but it literally is a joke weapon, so I won't argue against that. It is a joke weapon, so there isn't really anything you could do about it. Now, the best actually I was able to do with this build is actually Ties That Bind, but not necessarily because this gun is secretly good, but only because of Ties That Bind being so ridiculous. I was able to get to the Valkyrie squad on my last stream with Ties That Bind, and then we couldn't defeat the Valkyrie squad, and I'm sure with enough of dedication I could potentially defeat the Valkyrie squad with the Shoddy. But I'm gonna go into Athena's just so we can see how bad this weapon is. Generally, because it Ties That Bind, we're actually able to deal a decent amount of damage compared to what you would expect. Before we go into combat, I do want to say that this weapon actually is able to potentially go a little bit farther with heavy rain. Projectile speed increased by 70%. Amara is the only character that I could find that has projectile speed bonuses, so Amara is the character you want to play if you want to do the Shoddy. The Shoddy is able to go a little bit farther with heavy rain, so that is a little bit more benefit in case you do wish to use the Shoddy. Out of all the characters, definitely use Amara. Now that we have some enemies here, let me use some Ties That Bind, and we can see how much damage we can actually do. So right off the bat, we're able to kill some enemies around us, but only because of Ties That Bind. I'm going to move on to the next enemy and just shoot it without Ties That Bind, and sure, we're able to deal decent damage there, but it's going to take multiple shots and being in melee range before we can actually even kill the guy, which is terrible because the melee from any enemy, like Malawan enemy, is going to pretty much get you to all the way down in your HP. So that is a very bad sight. And then let's move on to Captain Trant, just so we can see how the bossing capabilities on this weapon is. Now that we're at Captain Trant, let's see how much damage we can deal. I am going to stack up some of my do harm stacks just so we can get the most benefits of the doubt, as much damage as possible. And then we're going to go into it and then try to deal some damage to Captain Trant. You could potentially kill Captain Trant with this weapon, but it's going to take some time. You could potentially also kill him very easily if there's enemies around him, but we don't have any enemies around him. And due to its pitiful projectile range, even if the enemy were to run away, I wouldn't actually be able to deal any damage to it. And I'm right next to him, and I'm lacing into him as much as possible, and his health bar is just not going down. It's very bad. I'm sure with the right build, you could make this shine for a fun challenge run, but I wouldn't think that there'd be any reason to ever play this besides a challenge run. It's obviously a joke weapon, so of course it's not going to be good. I would be really interested to see if anybody could figure out a way to make the weapon better. We do know that projectile speed is increased with Amara, and if you aim higher up, it will go farther, so that is something. Now, the reason why I choose this weapon to be the worst weapon in the game as opposed to anything else is that the Nerf dart weapon that we covered previously is actually able to deal really good damage compared to this weapon. We were able to kill Grave Ward in about 10 seconds, while with this weapon I wouldn't even be able to kill Grave Ward in like maybe half an hour with this weapon. It would take too long. And then there's people that argue that the Vault Hero would be actually the worst weapon only because it can only spawn in level 12 and nothing higher, so there's no way to get it any better. So in theory, the Vault Hero is worse, but if you had a Shoddy and a Vault Hero at the same level, I would guarantee that the Vault Hero would outclass it, but there's no way for us to really do that because the only obtainable way to get a Vault Hero is through the old shift code reward that was happening before the game was released, so there's no way to get any higher level Vault Hero as far as I'm aware. There might be a glitch or something that allows you to get the Vault Hero maybe in the diamond room or something. If you guys know if you can get the Vault Hero in the diamond room, I would love to hear, because I doubt it, but you know, there's lots of weird things that spawn in the diamond room, so I would be really interested. And then even the starter pistol, if you were to get the starter pistol to level 72, it would even deal more damage than this weapon. If you go to my last video on the worst weapon ever, which was Nerf Dart Gun, I was able to kill Grave Ward in about a few seconds with the starter pistol at level 72. But with the Shoddy, even at max level, max mayhem scaling, you're not able to deal like any damage with it. If you were to put all the worst weapon candidates in a vacuum and got them all at the same level and stats and everything, the Shoddy would still be the worst, especially since it can't go very far. Maybe in the future we'll get a vault card that makes projectile speed really fast, and maybe we can get it to zoom fast towards the enemy or something. If you guys have an idea on how to make the projectile speed even faster, I would be interested in testing the Shoddy even further. But even with Moze, which is able to scum out a lot of damage with the worst weapons, I couldn't even put a dent in Grave Ward, which is very bad showing for this weapon. If you think there's a weapon that's worse than the Shoddy, perhaps you could even argue that the Vault Hero is worse. I would love to hear your worst contenders in the comments and description. I would love to cover more worst weapons in the game just because they don't get any sunlight for obvious reasons, but I would love some people to learn about them because it always is fun seeing the opposite of the spectrum, because we're always talking about the best weapons and the most OP combination. But as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him out with a moxie melt till he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. War in a cave with a torch on a wall, then a window arrangement of porcelain dolls.